Okay, great.
Okay.
So before we get started, really quickly, we are
Thank
pleased to have you here tonight or this afternoon. We have a couple of rules and guidelines to follow to strike a balance between meaningful, transparent engagement and online security. The following rules have been applied to this meeting. This meeting has been called to conduct the business of the City of Boulder. Activities that disrupt, display, or otherwise interfere with this meeting are prohibited. The time for speaking or asking questions may be limited. No person shall speak except when recognized by the person presiding, and no person shall speak for longer than the time allotted. Each person shall register to speak at the meeting using the person's real name. Any person believed to be using a name other than the one they are commonly known will not be permitted to speak at the meeting. No video will be permitted except for city officials, employees, and invited speakers, presenters. All other participants will participate by voice only. The person presiding at the meeting shall enforce these rules by muting anyone who violates them. The chat function is enabled and it will be used for individuals to communicate with the host. It should be used for technical online platform related questions only. If an attendee attempts to use chat for any reason other than seeking assistance from the host, the city reserves the right to disable that individual's access to the chat. Only the host individuals designated by the host will be permitted to share their screen during the meeting.
Wow, awesome. Does that happen every single time?
Yes, we strive to do that every single time.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. All right, and perfect, because now here's Ryan hopping on. So anyway, I was really happy that you all wanted to have another retreat. I feel like it's such a good opportunity to step away from the work that you're doing on the substantive issues and just sort of talk about the how, which we spent a lot of time on last time, how you work with each other and staff. And I'm hearing you've gotten some great support from Councilmember Spear in between. It just sounds like you've stayed really engaged, Nicole. So thank you so much for that. And what I wanted and thought we would do, hopefully you all got the agenda, is just do a check-in. I would love to hear how the last few meetings have gone and how your work together seems to be going. I know you've had a successful CAM presentation, and start there with what's working and if there's anything that you want to make adjustments of. And then since Natalie's able to join us just for this first part, I just wanted a quick reminder of the staff work plan and priorities that were presented to council. And so we can hear that and remember that that's the work in action. And then we're going to go through and really focus this meeting on what you all bring to the table in terms of your individual priorities. But you've had a good opportunity to share those with each other. So it's an opportunity to hear about that. What are your passions and what are your priorities that you bring? And then see if we can find a collective voice around priorities of those things. Does that sound good? And I know I sent an email and I didn't hear back, but it wasn't till this morning. But is there anything that you have that you want to make sure we talk about today that I didn't mention? Okay, fantastic. You certainly can interrupt me at any time, but that's great. So talk to me about how things seem like, what's working? How are your meetings going? Have you noticed any positive change since our last retreat? Those of you who are new, how's it feeling? Tila's the only one a little bit off the hook here because I know she hasn't been there for the last couple, right? Is that right? You were last night though, or just one? Okay.
Well, they're definitely running shorter. That's good. Alex is, I don't know. Maybe it's the change in membership, but they're running short, which is good because sometimes they would go until after midnight. That was no fun for anyone. Yeah. I was wondering last night, I'm still not terribly clear why some things are information items only versus having a presentation and then expected tab discussion. And so I expect we'll get to this later on, but just in general, I want to make sure that we are sort of interfacing with the right parts of staff and not just siloed into talking to the same, couple of heads and boxes, just to make sure that some of the expertise that Tab can bring to other areas of thinking is actually happening. something and stuff kind of waiting to develop. It's hard because you keep switching directors. So there's sort of a regime change every time.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, and that is that what's going to be my second question is, what are some things that you want us to keep on the radar and still want to see about improvement? I'm trying to, there's something fuzzy when you speak. Is that true for others too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will dial in with a different thing.
It's okay.
But I can fix the audio after this. But in a nutshell.
Yeah, just so I capture it.
Yeah, want to make sure that TAB is able to advise council and staff other than just the usual suspects.
Okay. Thank you. That was okay. That was very clear. So in terms of what's working, what feels good about it? How's Alex as chair? How are the meetings? Because shorter meetings, as long as it doesn't feel like you're cutting something important off, that sounds amazing and great to me.
To make CAN a reality, we had to reallocate resources from a bunch of smaller efforts. And so I think it's possible that in the coming years, with a focus on CAN, there will be fewer items that are coming towards CAN. They'll be grander in scale and then in importance and impact. So hopefully 3-hour-long meetings are here to stay.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Alex. Anybody else? How do you all feel about your ability to engage and ask questions? Ryan?
Do you mind if we stick on that question?
No.
It just starts as a procedural point. I recall last time we did this happened a couple of times where we were on a question and then I think we moved forward without giving people a chance.
Too fast.
I know there's folks who were probably just thinking about things. So if you don't mind if we stick on this question and make sure that the other members have a minute. And I have something too, but did anybody else want to go first on what's working or? Okay. I will also agree that I think there's been, well, certainly meetings are shorter. I think there's been not just shorter, but also crisper, kind of more like, I don't know, constructive, or I guess kind of like just more work oriented perhaps than maybe I'm used to in the first half of my TAB tenure. I think one reason seems to be that we have some more strategic focus with CAN, and I think there's probably a lesson there for other things that we could do in terms of understanding what's the framework we all agree we're working towards, and we can organize the feedback we get around the thing that we all understand is important. I think that is it's lucky we have it. It's the product of work. Part of the luck is that I think we have a council now that is probably more interested in this kind of an initiative. Speaking of council, having Councilmember Spear at these meetings, I think is really, really great. I don't know how Nicole, you make the time for everything, but you are one of our, your body is our, in my mind, one of 2 key clients of ours, and having you there gives us somebody to talk to and not speak in hypotheticals and have a chance to, at least, and I know you're not the whole council, but just to have you as a liaison, I think it's been incredibly important. And having you give us feedback and shoot emails to us here and there, I just think it's just made the whole experience a lot richer, probably for everyone. So I think those things are working pretty well. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
That's great. Thank you. What else is working well? And as I was saying, you could think about how members are all engaging, your connection with council and staff. I think, Ryan, you just gave a great example of the help that it's been to have Councilmember Spear at meetings. Anything else? Yeah.
Well, I'd like to add, I love having the opportunity to see all the projects in person. So the tour was really beneficial, and I got to really get to know some of the other members a little bit better. So I really enjoyed that. And as far as the meetings, I am 100% with everybody else that has spoken. They're very fluid and very informative. And I feel most of the time, I feel very, very prepared to just be part of the meeting and engage. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jermaine. Anybody else?
I'm happy to offer just some of what I've seen, if that's helpful for folks, and I don't want to take over the meeting.
No, it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah,
Thank
I mean,
you.
I think, what I'm observing is some similar things to what other folks have been talking about. Just a little more alignment, a little more goal orientation in coming at questions. I think one of the things I've noticed is when staff presents questions for the board, just like I noticed they do this for council too, it helps us, but it really seems like it's helping to kind of focus the discussion and get people to really go back and forth on ideas in a way that I see being pretty powerful. It seems like you all are kind of gelling as well, the 5 of you on kind of community members on tab, as well as with staff. And it's really nice to see that kind of people coming together, challenging each other, right? Sure, because we're a team. that's what we do, but really working together nicely. And it does just feel like there's starting to emerge more of a strategic focus, which I personally, as a council member, really appreciate having that level of thinking, because it's the level of thinking on transportation that I would love to do more of, and having you all be able to supplement what we can do with that, I think is good. And I just find you all to be an incredibly joyful and wonderful group of people to spend time with. And thank you also for giving me some time for one-on-one meetings too, because it's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit more and just hear a little more about your backgrounds and things like that. And just your ideas, your grand plans for how we can do things differently in the city. It's really fun, and you're a really creative bunch of people.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm happy to contribute here. I, want to be mindful that it's Tab's retreat, so I don't want to talk too much. But I think we're also as staff trying to approach our meetings like more strategically and really thinking super intentionally about, what it is we're bringing, and being clear about the purpose and clear about where we see Tab's role is and how we can use you for feedback and advice. And so I think we're trying to just spend it's hard because every day is very busy and there's a lot going on. And so, but we're really trying to make time for this and think about and prepare for each meeting that we're going into. So, and I think staff is feeling like we're seeing the benefit from that as well.
Can I ask board members, are you noticing that? Is it helpful and useful, the preparation that staff is trying to bring?
I've noticed it's super increased. Well, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I have to think about this more. But I've been very pleased with quality of presentation and new staff, and just the last 6 months. Valerie and Nathan, just to start with, 2 relatively newer folks. I've been really impressed with them, and Natalie. I think you've brought some new energy, different energy, structure to the meetings that all kind of works together. So I've really enjoyed working with staff, and I think that's half of the equation here. So I don't have anything specific. I didn't really think about examples, but yeah, leave it at that.
That's great. Thanks. Okay. So let me shift the question just to other things that you'd like to still see more of that you think could make things even better. Because I'm really happy to hear things are going in the right direction, that you've had some positive shift and efforts have been noticed. And so one of the things Tila brought up was just making sure that we're able to advise and connect with staff and others that are I think the right people to be interfacing with, if I'm paraphrasing correctly. Not the usual suspects, I think is the way that she worded it. Yeah. Anything else there?
Okay, sorry, I don't want to keep talking, but on this point, I've been close to this with Teal and Alex on some matters, I think, and also as one of our somebody keeps talking about climate that involves, if we do a rigorous science-based approach to transportation climate action, it involves land use and planning, it involves parking, it involves other departments. We are, sort of by charter, commission, whatever, working with the transportation department directly. That is in part an artifact of how transportation used to be sort of understood before we cared about climate, among these other things. And so I think, yeah, there's sort of this ongoing rub that is what you would expect in any organization, where you have departments that don't have the people who have accountability and leadership for the things that the people who are trying to manage things care about. And so I think, the example that I heard in Tila in my own imagination just now was yesterday, with us at the meeting asking about our involvement with AMPS, that's the parking related work. And we had asked, how do we kind of weigh in at this at a more holistic or a higher level? And the answer was, well, as a community member, you're welcome to, just come talk to us. And so, I don't think it's a function of any one person or a shortcoming of any sort of like narrow thing, but it's rather we have an organizational structure in the enterprise of the city in which land use, planning, community vitality, some other departments have a really critical impact on the activities of transportation. And we as TAB don't, with current org structure, have a good way to kind of feed into that yet. That's my take.
Yeah, and I'll just say, Ryan, I think the Transportation Advisory Board isn't alone in feeling that way. There are other boards in the organization, I think, that are also wrestling with this issue of how do we, and we as city staff, and I know the city manager's office, we're thinking about like how do we effectively engage multiple boards across different topic areas, kind of into the future, and that live across those various departments. Like you said, I'd add climate initiatives to that list, right? And so, yeah, I think we're trying to figure that out, and there will need to be more conversation, but I just wanted to acknowledge that that's definitely not, you aren't alone, and also staff is thinking about it.
Nicole.
Yeah, I was just going to echo, this is something that I've heard as well from the city manager's office, just really thinking about how are we organizing, how are we making decisions across different departments in ways that are less siloed. And also the other thing that I was just going to note in terms of things that could still be worked on is around just kind of strategic direction from council even, because I feel like it's our responsibility, right, to sort of work with you all and make sure that when you're giving input, when you're not giving input, and why, right? What are the different kind of criteria for making these decisions? And I will be honest, I do not know how this kind of thing comes about within the city and within council and board relationships, but it does feel like it's really critical for me, so that everybody, not just for this council and this TAB, but everybody moving forward has that clear understanding of what it is TAB is doing. I think it makes it a lot more fun for everybody involved if you know what your goal is and what it is you're trying to accomplish. So maybe this is something we'll get to a little bit more in the later discussions about things to work on, but I just wanted to name that work of even just sort of revisiting TAB's, I don't know if charter is the right word, or that is it still relevant for where we are in 2022 and what we're trying to do as a city? Is it not? Should it be improved? That to me feels like some critical strategic work that needs to happen, just to make the experience more productive and fun for everybody.
I have a quick question to those of you that might know the answer. Are there still, is there ever a joint board activity or discussion where all the boards come together for, just to sit at tables and learn from each other and that sort of thing?
Yeah, various projects still, really big, like for the East Boulder Sub-Community Plan, like that's an example where they would have brought together joint boards at a certain point in time. And those are like pretty big lifts. And so we're trying to think about as staff, like what is, and because they're such big lifts, you can't do them super regularly. And so we're trying to think of kind of like some type of, something morphing from that, right? That's maybe not as big of a lift, but a way to engage multiple boards. And maybe it's like we've had the Greenway Advisory Committee that some of you are familiar with, where you pull a couple representatives from 3 or 4 different boards across the city, and then they meet. The Greenways Advisory Committee only met once a year. And so then you would engage them for that one thing for like this, it's basically around the CIP is what we would do it around. So that's potentially a model that we could think about that would engage more often on other topics. But anyway, that's just an example of something that we're thinking about, but we certainly are still just in that like brainstorming phase.
Thank you. Anything else from you all as you think about just continual improvement? Lots of great stuff on what you see as improvements and connections. But what else could get even better?
I haven't chimed in a lot just because I feel like I don't have enough track record yet to really make comparisons over time of, you know, how things have improved, for instance, or how they were different in the past. But one thing that's helpful to me is just anytime it's made clear that like what kind of the scope of comment is for TAB in any given instance. I'm not always sure like what is open to discussion, what isn't open to discussion, as far as, you know, what's already decided and what hasn't been decided. So that's a place I really struggle is, should I be thinking about this? Is this already set in stone? In which case it doesn't, you know, I'm not going to spend my time preparing to talk about it, or it hasn't, and that might be at a different, you know, various levels of the project, whether it's just, you know, what project is going to be done was sort of part of the discussion last night, but other times it's, you know, exact features of a project that we might be giving feedback on. And so, yeah, just anytime I get direction around the sort of scope of the kind of feedback TAB should be prepared to give, that's really helpful for me, especially since I'm still kind of figuring out the different types of items that are brought before the board.
That's great, and probably maybe project specific, it sounds like. So sometimes it's a report out of here's an update on where we are, and sometimes it's at different stages and different requests for you all. So each time clarity is what I'm hearing, Becky, would be useful and helpful as you're sort of learning all of that. Yeah. Okay. Tila, I think you, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah.
Great.
We have had a couple of joint planning board meetings, which have been pretty interesting. And those have happened on specific projects at the, you know, invitation of council, which is kind of how it has to go as our charter currently stands. So, you know, we've asked for many years to have that like input on land use be more regular and less siloed. But in the meantime, having mostly Rachel Friend reach out and say, shouldn't we ask TAB on this particular thing? But just to have someone on council like cognizant of and, you know, giving us on at least a case by case basis, if a wholesale charter change isn't happening. And that's been helpful. I think that we've had very interesting meetings and some substantive input that we wouldn't have been asked for otherwise on some of these. So I'd like to see that continue. I'd like to see, you know, overall us to be able to have more and earlier input on land use decisions. But, you know, if in the meantime, we have to be invited case by case, just to have someone always thinking about that on the council side to make it happen would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. So I'm about to move on to just kind of doing a quick, before we lose Natalie, just a quick reminder of the work plan that staff has. But I don't want to cut you off. So is there any last thing that you've thought about? Alex, I don't know if we've heard from you on this one. Anybody else? Okay. All right, if you think of something later, please feel free to chat it or let me know. And Natalie, do you mind just a quick review of what we heard before, just that we keep that sort of here as
Yeah.
we have the rest of our discussion. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And this will be brief. I think the kind of purpose, I just thought it would be helpful for, and we kind of talked about just reminding folks of the work plan that is set for 2022. And that's as we've kind of presented it to council through when we set like our budget priorities and then our work plan going into the retreat. And so as you all are, I'm sure, very familiar with, our focus is on maintaining core services, enhancing maintenance, and then of course Vision Zero, and that's through a variety of projects this year. We have our intersection improvement grants that we're working on, and the Vision Zero action plan, and then of course the CAN work. So those are our kind of, I would say, program and project priorities, and then we certainly have our CIP priorities, North Broadway, 30th and Colorado, 28th Street. And then there's the various work items that kind of come out of our planning team that are really where we see an impact on our climate goals through TDM and transit service and programs, and then our regional transit planning efforts, and then our active transportation program areas with like the shared micromobility program. So those are kind of at a very high level, the things that we're focusing on. And so I think just keeping that in mind as you go into your priority conversation and thinking about what you want, to be focused on as we close out the rest of the year, and then moving into 2023 and helping kind of start the conversation. Certainly there will be much more conversation, but starting the conversation around the council priorities for 2023 through your letter that you guys will be working on later this year.
Okay. Thank you. Any quick questions for Natalie before she leaves us?
What was the letter? I don't know if I know what that is.
Council letter.
Sure, I can speak to that briefly, and your tab members certainly can chime in here too. But each year council asks for a letter, and the format kind of changes each year, I think. And I'm not going to remember, Meredith may have a better memory of what last year's format was. But it's usually like what kind of went well this year, what could have gone better, and like what are you excited about for the coming year, and or it's some variation of that. There was like a happy sad thing, I think, one year. But that's the intention is to kind of like have the boards share kind of what you want council to be thinking about for your various area as you go into the next year and as they go into their retreat. And of course Nicole can chime in since she's a council member.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have one thing for Natalie before she goes, just kind of a wrap up. And I'm kind of tracing back to what's working, but Natalie made me think of it, and I just wanted to offer this before you go. I think, as I said, like one of the things that I think works well is that we have this strategic focus. But it's not just that we have a focus. I think something that is creating energy is that we're doing something that's like, it's like hard and it's different and it's restructure, and it's the kind of thing that it didn't, first of all, it took some, I guess you could say, exogenous change in a sense. Like it wouldn't have just maybe happened organically. It's the sort of thing that required at least a decision to say, we're going to restructure. We're in the sense of creating a whole new grid of right of ways, and as opposed to incremental. And I think there's a lesson in that when we say we're going to do something ambitious and big and it's going to be different, I think that inspires people. I think it inspires staff. It probably inspires staff, and it creates something really exciting. And so I would just offer that as we're reflecting here about what's working and what we want to do going forward, my thought is part of the example to build from is saying, let's do transformation, because that is the thing that actually creates a lot of energy and excitement, even though it creates uncertainty.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan. Nicole, did you want to add anything in terms of the letter to council or any of that, or?
Not unless folks still have questions. I feel like
Okay.
you really, explained it well, but I'm happy to go in a little
Okay.
more. If that's helpful.
Yeah. Doesn't look like it.
Is there anybody who would like a little more on it?
Thank you. I think today will be a good, and I hope, a good opportunity to sort of foundationally toward that letter, but right now, not limited to that letter. It's really this next part, and most of what we're doing with our time today is for you to hear from each other. Kind of what are your priorities that you bring, and where's your passion and where's your interest? So I'm going to start by asking Nathan to give us a quick tutorial on Jamboard. Have any of you used Jamboard before? Yeah. So we're going to use it as a way to just capture your priorities, and then so I'm going to ask you all to give them a placeholder, your individual priorities, and then we'll go back through and have each of you speak to the priorities that you added. So that's going to be the first step, but I'm going to let Nathan explain sort of how that works.
Yeah, it's really straightforward. If you can see my screen right now, we've got a couple of sticky notes on here that you'll just click on, and you're welcome. You'll double click to come in here, and you'll come in here and add your priority. I'll be sending you the link to this board here momentarily. I have to do it individually, so it might take me a second. There are additional sticky notes here on the left side, where you can add a sticky note and then choose the color of it. Everybody has a different color right now. And then you can move them around if you want to kind of rearrange them. I don't think we're saying these are any priority, right, Heidi? Just labeled them A, B, C instead of 1, 2, 3, because they're all what you think, not necessarily sequential. And please let me know if you have any trouble accessing the link that I'm slowly getting out to each of you right now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it should immediately give you, everybody can drive. And so just when you get there, everybody just take some time to give a title to, or a placeholder, instead of priority A or B or C or D. What is the thing that you would want for tab for this upcoming year to focus on?
Are those links working for folks?
It should be in the chat, right?
Cool. Yes, I see. Somebody's in here. Great.
Mine works, so.
Sorry, I'm behind I'm behind here. We're supposed to be testing to see if we can manipulate.
Yeah, just test it, because what I'd like to do now is have everybody just take some time and fill out sticky notes. And you may have 1, you may have 4, you may have more than 4, but sticky notes of what you want to talk about, what you would like as priorities. And in your link that Nathan just sent, you should be able to do that. Double click on a sticky note, and it'll give you the opportunity to put a different title in.
I just messed with Ryan's, so
I
don't know.
love it.
Yeah.
Ryan, I think somebody's stealing your notepad.
Okay.
Is there anyone who the link didn't work or the link didn't come through? Is every member of TAB able to access this?
I'm still trying
Works
to.
for me.
It just came from you, Nathan?
Yep, it should be. I can resend.
I'm not seeing it, but
It should be through
In the
the Zoom
chat.
chat.
Oh,
Yeah, it's in the
Sorry.
chat.
Click
Not
on
an
the
email. I was
chat.
looking for an email too, but
Apologies, I should have clarified.
Speak up if you're having any issues with, I know you need some time to think about it too, but if you have issues with being able to fill out your sticky notes, let us know.
My issue is that now I want ice cream.
I know, we need to get rid of that one. It's making me hungry too.
I should have found some good hold music for us to listen to, some elevator
Yeah,
jams.
think about that. Cool.
Am I going to mess anybody up if I give you a little bit of Dr. Cobb context as you're working? It's been really interesting that these last 6 months or so that I've been on Dr. Cog. One of the things that they are, and Dr. Cog is the, I forget what it stands, the Denver Regional Council of Governments. They're kind of the organization, right, that funds the TIP projects and kind of is responsible for allocating a lot of transportation funding. They have been working on a greenhouse gas mitigation plan in response to some recent legislation that was passed. And what has been super interesting to me is that in this greenhouse gas mitigation plan for a transportation agency, a lot of what they're talking about is how to help communities build housing and just kind of plan a little bit more responsibly in a way that helps out with transportation. And one of the things that they're going to be working on over the next 4 or 5 years is developing some technical assistance to help communities get the data they need and make some of the changes that they need to densify along urban corridors, especially, or transportation corridors. So I think that's a place where there will be a lot of support for communities in the coming years around that. But I just, I saw housing pop up, but I know that's an issue that some of you have raised with me personally. So I just wanted to mention, I think some of those things aligning with some of those regional efforts may facilitate work in the years ahead.
Thank you. And Alex and Becky, I just want to remind you, if you do want to add more, since you've used all 4 of those, that you can. The sticky notes are just over to the side and you can just pick your color once you open it. Okay. Anybody need a little more time?
I could use a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
sorry,
you.
I had to jump off. We have some family crises going on. And I had to take a
Oh.
call real quick.
Okay. Yeah, no worry. We have time. Thank you for doing that, Nathan. And so as people are finishing up, I'll just add that we're really shifting a lot of what we've talked about during the retreats is how you do your work with each other and partner with others. And this, the hearing this positive feedback about it's seeming to go better. It always makes me hopeful because when we're working together, and I thought Councilmember Spear described this really well, this sort of work, it doesn't mean we don't have hard conversations, and it doesn't mean we don't bump into each other or disagree with each other. It's that we're working in partnership to solve issues or to focus on projects and initiatives and whatever it is that's coming up. We have so much more opportunity to put our energy into those things rather than the sort of drain of pushing against each other, that, you know, that the difference in working together against the problem versus working against each other. So this now, and the hope of all that is that then this gets at some of the stuff that you care about, that you want to see as priorities for yourselves. And I think it, like I said, it'll be good. And as Natalie said, to help inform your letter to council later, but it makes the work so much more possible when you have that other part, the how, figured out better. So, but we are shifting now to what is it that you want to see as priorities and want to focus on, want to have council focus on. Lots of good stuff here. That extra time, Ryan, that you said you could use a little of in Tila, it looks like it helped everyone. So thank you. We got a lot more thoughts and ideas up here.
Oh,
I'm just gonna move some stuff around to make some more space for these new stickies. So don't be alarmed if your sticky note is moving.
smells a lot like gas.
It's back. So Nathan, I'm going to ask you this question because I'm not sure if what I'm thinking of will make sense, but I was going to have people, as they start to talk about them, drop them down into the box underneath. Is that going to work, or is it, we can't really view it all at once? Because we want to be able to read them.
I think if we just zoom in a bit on the people who are presenting theirs or sharing their ideas, then we can drop them down afterward. Does that work?
Okay, it does. And here's why I'm asking that question for you all, is where you see some redundancy, you know, maybe we can find a way to collapse it into one, but, or at least put the sticky notes on top of each other, kind of a thing. So if there's any place where there's double, but that sounds good. Do you want to do it then that one person goes through all of theirs and then we move on to the next? I'm asking the members, or would you like to have people one at a time, like each person share one of theirs and go through that way? Do you have a preference? I'm going to take that as a no preference. So I'll just say, whoever wants to speak first, what I'd like you to do is go through your priorities and share kind of what it is and why. And then we'll give your the other board members and others that are on, Council Member Spear and maybe Valerie or any staff that have questions, also weigh in on any questions they might have for you or thoughts. Okay. So think about each person has about, I'm just looking at the clock, somewhere around 8 minutes, 5 to 8 minutes. Okay. And I'll try to keep track of time.
I made a duplicate, but it was a mistake. It wasn't to emphasize. So just,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I'll delete that one if you're okay with it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Nathan. Perfect. I want to say it twice. Yeah. Okay. Who wants to go first? Ryan, is that you volunteering that you took your microphone off mute?
No, I'm just furiously typing. Somebody else should go.
Okay, I'll just go left to right if you don't speak up, and that would mean that Alex would go first. So,
Well,
Oh, Trini, you want to go?
Trini,
I was just gonna I think this one is a good leeway because yesterday, given what we had at the meeting, just faster access to crash and citation data. I think our work would really, we could focus on certain things in an easier way if we had access to this information. And also, I mean, it's important that the public know where these things are happening and, what we can do. And when we take action, why we're doing certain things in certain places. So I'm just going to share one.
okay, but let me ask though, and people might have specific questions for you, but Becky, is that in line with your first one? Is it the same sort of thing or slightly different?
Yeah, no, I think it's the same. Yeah, just having that data publicly accessible and updated at frequent intervals.
Mm-hmm. So it's public access and it's also faster, and you said updated more. So more current information. Yeah. Faster. Okay.
Yeah, because I believe like nationwide, I think it's a cycle of every 2 or 3 years. So it shouldn't have to be that way at a local level, would be my opinion, especially if we're so active and trying to really stick to our Vision Zero goals.
Anybody have questions about it or comments about it? Okay. All right. Well, I guess that one doesn't need more explanation. Because when we finish with all of this, the way that I'm going to ask you all to think about this is I'm going to do like a dot voting so we can see where the energy in the room is. So as you're listening, think about where would I put my dots if I gave you 4 or 5 dots and asked you, you can put them all on one, or you can spread them out in whatever way you want to. I want you to think about where you are because we're trying to see if there's any alignment for you all, right? So here we see one place where there's alignment between Trini and Becky.
Heidi, should I bring those two down to group them together?
Yeah, because it'll be the easiest way for me to be able to keep track of what we covered and what we haven't if we're not doing one person does all other things. But yeah, let's keep them right connected to each other. Okay. Thank you. Let me hear from either Alex, Tila, or Ryan on something, one of yours.
We've gotten
Alex,
off a
thank
really
you.
quick start with implementation of the core material network. I think thanks in large part to all the grant opportunities that we have before us, but it's certainly not a done deal. So ensuring that it remains a priority of TAB will ensure that the council and staff are able to continue pressing forward. Okay, so great one. So when I just was in a meeting earlier that was talking about this also, this wonderful momentum, you had a successful presentation to council. It all seems to be going really well, but you know that focus can wane. So making sure to keep it as a focus so that it keeps moving forward. Is that right? Yeah. Any questions you all have about that? Okay. Tila, what's one of yours? So we can drop that one down too, I think.
gonna drive you crazy, Nathan, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we all mentioned CAN, and I think he says keep CAN in focus. I say
Same.
keep momentum
Mhm.
behind it. But the idea generally is a lot of transportation projects just take a long time to
Mhm.
materialize. You know, the planning effort, funding, and you know, these are, as Ryan said, hard. They're kind of big picture things. And so it's going to be hard, not just to kind of sustain public interest in it, but you know, we've been through rounds of, you know, a couple of council members really want to get behind something, and you know, it gets somewhere for 2 or 3 years, and then they lose interest or they drop off council, and the rug gets yanked out from under that. And the difference with CAN, of course, is that it's this arterial thing where we might actually move the needle on some of our crash and serious injuries, and sort of change how the city feels to drive around and to get around in if you're not in a car. And so I just want to make sure that we don't kind of lose that sort of incentive to really focus on and stay attentive to that effort over the years it's going to take to realize it. You know, even some of the council members who were really strongly behind CAN at the retreat, and when that sort of impetus happened, were surprised, like, well, what are we going to see by December? You know, if we want to have something to point to this year. And so just trying to explain to council and the public, and to keep that sense of urgency and the dedication to that effort going, so that we're not just chasing the next shiny squirrel. I think is going to be what we have to be focusing on, not just this year, but you know, in our coming years as well. Can I have a suggestion to make about how we're proceeding here?
Yes.
I think a lot of us, you know, some of these are pretty self-explanatory: safety over speed and speed reduction, prioritize a walkable, livable 30th Street. I don't think there's a whole lot of discussion. Like, there's no head scratching on that. But I can't even read all Orion's, but just where people might
right now
questions like,
can't.
I don't know what you mean by that. Can you explain a little bit more behind promote good governance? Can we just go that way?
We can, and that sounds absolutely like a good plan. I do want to just ask Trini, because we dragged your CAN projects over there. Was there anything else specific that you meant there that's different than what we just heard from Tila and Alex?
No. And I think Tila said it really well, you know, just kind of realizing that things take a long time, and you know, keeping momentum alive. So
okay. So as you're looking at it in the way that Tila mentioned, where do you have questions and stuff? Please also look for where you think they can be grouped or lumped together, whether they're yours or not. Let's have that conversation too, because we're trying to
I think Becky has a couple of
support CAN.
Yeah, I have a couple that are related to CAN. One, in terms of momentum, is thinking about long term. How do you keep this kind of work going? And you know, we can look at lots of other cities to see how it waxes and wanes over time. And some cities have successfully, or at least are in the early stages of successfully keeping that momentum through having policies that really mandate in a strong way the amount of change that has to happen when a street is repaved. And I think CAN is very much in that vein. But I think if, you know, thinking a few years out, well, how do you keep it going when there is turnover of council members, of staff, of city residents? One way is to have policy that says very clearly, and has some degree of funding attached to it, right? Since that's important too. A certain level of a certain standard for what kind of, for instance, what kind of change has to happen on a street when it's repaved to match the city's like ped plans, for instance, or whatever else it is. Cambridge is a city that has an example of this, and has not been easy per se for it to implement, but I think is a model of one way of keeping momentum going over time by sort of baking in policy. So it's kind of a big picture thought, but I think in the same vein as those other notes of keeping CAN going.
Okay, and are you talking about the first one or the one right below it?
It's the bottom left.
Unsure. Bottom left. Okay. Yeah. So we can move that over. It's a little more specific with examples of how to, right? There's something that's, I made a note for myself also, because I'm hearing from all four of these, how do we keep it going when it takes a while and the players may change, council members change, board members on tap change. And in Phoenix, there was a really big study done about how to keep these big efforts going, regardless of who the players are, regardless of who's forward, and what are some of the things we need to remember and that help with that. And I'll try to dig it up, because I'm remembering it, but I don't remember enough about it. But there might be some really good things in there since you have this interest. You might want to look at it. Was a civic lead research, I think. Okay, good. Anything else that should go over there?
Nicole has
anything
raised
else?
her hand.
Yes, thank you,
I
Nicole.
just wanted to offer one perspective, because I asked this question at the recent council meeting where we were talking about CAN, and Natalie had what I thought was a really great answer that was really helpful for me. And her point was that especially these bigger projects that are tied to federal funding or DRCOG funding, those kinds of things, it takes so long to get that funding and to get it in motion and to get the projects approved, that once it's kind of going and that funding has been approved through the TIP process, it's sort of going to keep going regardless of who's there. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective, something to think about in terms of a strategy for making sure that things outlast councils and TAB members and that kind of thing, is to tie it into these very slow moving, or at least hard to change funding mechanisms.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks, Nathan. I know, I think if I make this bigger on my screen, are you all on looking at Nathan's, or are you looking at your individual? I don't know if it matters. For me, it matters. If I go back to looking at Nathan's screen share instead of my link, I can see it better. So I don't know if that's true for everyone. Other questions, comments?
I think I see Tila and I aligning in will the assist for more effective public messaging regarding Road to Zero and road safety and Vision Zero with my education campaigns that will inform the public.
Okay.
I think that's.
Does that look right to you too, Tila? Do they look similar?
I definitely shy away from words like education campaign, but
Oh yeah, but you know what I mean. I think.
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean.
So not,
and Trinny's was more kind of explaining what we already did, and I'm kind of concerned more about why we need to change. A phrase that's really helpful for me is that you can't fix a problem you can't see. And so trying to help illustrate the problem. As a way of illustrating why we need to change, because change is hard. It's sort of more where I was coming from.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into like the faster access to crash and citation data, so people understand why we're trying to do certain things in certain places. But yeah, that may not be the best word regarding all the like implications, but maybe information campaigns. Is that what you said, Tila? Yeah.
I'm not too worried about the specific wording. I'm just pointing out,
yeah,
where I was coming from. It was a little different place.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear some from Ryan, because I don't, like I said, I can't even read all of it necessarily.
Yeah, and before we do, I don't want to lose that. So I wonder if we can bring those two together. And I know that they're slightly different, but the ideas are similar, and the wordsmithing can happen at a totally different time. Thank you. Just so we know we have that. And so Ryan, do you want to share some of those? Because they're a little hard to read.
Yeah, I would have, if I would have known I had 4 boxes, I would have had a little time, I would have summarized a little better. Okay, so I have one that's a TMP topic, and then 3 others that are more on things that can unleash the staff and the city to do more. So the first one, the TMP topic, is climate, and in my mind, a number of the TMP topics can mutually reinforce one another: mode shifting, Vision Zero, and climate in particular. Climate is one that we just haven't really done as much on, although maybe you could say that about mode shifting too. But I think about climate as something that if we were to follow, as the city were to follow, if we were to align with authoritative climate science, namely what the IPCC says we must do, it would support most of the other things that we have here around CAN and Vision Zero, and maybe more specifically on CAN. And I'm in the process of working with Natalie and Jonathan on the climate director to kind of think this through. So I'm a little bit, I don't want to get sort of too far out here on advocating exactly what it looks like. But my general impression is, as far as I can tell, we as a city, we don't have a commitment to science-based transportation climate action. And I think it's not clear to people. I think that the average person might think, oh, the city, they've got a great climate program. They must be doing what IPCC says about transportation. Or not. And there's sort of go down the list, but at its core, what we see in IPCC is you have to start with a goal of liberating the communities from car dependence and sprawl, and create a fabric of transit and walkability and bikeability in a compact multimodal form. That is a precondition for doing the rest. Electrification comes next, but that is a precondition for doing the rest. And transportation is one of the top few general areas of activity in a climate, in a decarbonization regime. So those aren't represented in the city's climate work, and those concepts are not represented in our TMP. There's a kind of a heuristic, I guess, that it's like somehow EVs are associated with climate, but according to authoritative science, it's actually a compact multimodal development that is both the most certain and the most quantifiable as far as what it can do. But I think the current situation is we just, you know, the centers of activity, whether in transportation department or climate, you know, just sort of work with what they have. And the enterprise of the city is not organized around solving for compact development to do decarbonization. So if we had a strategic commitment from council or from leadership or some combination of both, you know, and elevated from the transportation department to say this is important, I think we would start to create the conditions that would allow mode shift, CAN, and the second phase of CAN and all that stuff to grow. And we do a service to the public by making it clearer about what we are and are not doing with respect to alignment with climate science. So it's pretty wonky, and I know we have limited time as TAB to just like dive into all of that, and it's one reason I've kind of worked trilaterally with Natalie and Jonathan, or I started a process. And as I've said before, this was the thing I came to TAB for, was to work on. So I don't want to twist arms and say, you know, we all need to care about this the way that Ryan does. But I think that's the opportunity for climate. And I think if you get climate, you get the CAN, and we get Vision Zero working even with greater commitment, you will see more mutual reinforcement of the three. That's the climate one, maybe I'll stop before I go into the other kind of three things, which I could sort of do at once. But happy to talk about that.
Do you all have any questions about it?
I just wanted to add something in support of what Ryan's saying. I mean, and also advise that we kind of lean more on Vision Zero, because, you know, as you know, the safe systems approach is, you know, one of the pillars is exactly what you're speaking about, Ryan. So, I mean, I think it's kind of already there. We just gonna have to make that more clear, maybe. But yeah, that was my only input.
I guess my question for Ryan would be, how does TAB do this? Short of like in our letter saying to council at the end of the year, please make this one of your priorities next year. Like, I think the way you just phrased it, and I know you've been talking about it, you know, since you've been on the board, the way you've just phrased it was the most succinct and sort of just sunk. Maybe it's because it's the 12th time I've heard it, but to be able to give that kind of an elevator pitch to council and understand what we're not doing, what we think we might be doing, is pretty compelling. So how do we as TAB pursue that? I don't know. What should we do differently as TAB?
One thought would be, so I'm not making a case that this is the one thing we should focus on. And I was somebody who took forward the initiative for council for a work plan item in December on the VMT one. And, you know, it wasn't the right time for that. And one thing I learned through that is there's a lot of really great ideas, and there's things I care about that aren't necessarily what are worthy of focus. I think CAN is the right thing for council to be, if you can say one thing. So I guess sort of maybe playing with that premise a little bit, like, do we need just one thing? If so, maybe it's not this. But on the other hand, are there ways to seed some of these with maybe there's different levels of these of involvement by council or staff. But also, I'd sort of be interested if there's a way to get feedback. I don't know if it's directly just through Nicole or others, but like, I think council's interest in these, sort of their intrinsic or their inspired interest in these across the board here, become an important, an ingredient to what's actually the kind of thing that they want to do. So I don't know.
Alex, what are your thoughts?
I think Ryan has some really good messaging here that could serve as an umbrella for a lot of these other things. It's about making a sustainable community, and that is in line with, we see safety over speed here, we see focus on arterials, other climate mentions, land use and planning projects, and then for me, I think prioritizing a walkable, livable 30th Street is a thing that a council or staff could work on, would achieve some of these higher goals that, again, to me, feel kind of like a good umbrella for a lot of the other goals.
There's an umbrella. You all, my head starts spinning because I don't understand all of it in the way that you deep dive understand it, but it sounded like an umbrella that is compelling about why this matters and how it's not just one project. These things are all important, right? It's a process and system when I hear you. So now I'm envisioning that, and then some of this other stuff coming under it. I guess you can't really see all of my gesturing that I'm doing. Yeah, that one doesn't really fit in the with the sticky notes. It fits kind of above and over many of them, like you said, Alex. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's fitted kind of not necessarily in exact theme, but conceptually with the public kind of messaging, sticky notes. Depends whether it's emphasizes messaging or whether it emphasizes specific policies and using that framework. But could be, in some ways, could be.
I think on climate, I don't know. I had sort of come to this not as here's the pitch for what our work plan item is for council, but here are the things that matter for the city broadly and through TAB, and the things that we can bring energy to address. And I think one thing on climate is like, I think I would like to see council or an agreement between council, city manager, and transportation to say, we commit to having a science-based approach for transportation climate action, and then go forth. And, then that could catalyze a whole, set of discussions that would be kind of self-regulating in a way, because people would start to join discussions and you'd see things that come out of them. And then that would lead to, possibly some debate about, well, this is actually IPCC consistent or it's not. And if we find that it is, I think you'll see suddenly things are going to start to line up and point to having to support, or the need to greater valuing of CAN and more CAN and more of these things. So, but I don't know what council has to do specific, but I see Nicole, you have your hand, so why don't I shut up?
Yeah.
Did you want to finish your thought, Ryan, at all?
That was it. No, thank you. That was it.
Yeah, I was just going to say a couple of just observations on this conversation. One is that I think the transportation master plan revisions are coming up at some point in the next year, 2, 3, somewhere around there. That to me seems like a place for really getting some of this work committed by council. And I think that it would be foolish to not have a big focus of that be climate, right? Because that is intricately tied to our climate or to our transportation right now. So I think it's a good opportunity for making some progress and also ensuring that long-term work continues, as you all were talking about before. The other thing that I just wanted to offer is that we get lobbied all the time, generally by outside interests, rarely by boards and commissions. So I think if you have a clear message, if you have a plan in place, I mean, kind of like with CAN, right? You already had some of that there. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Tila. 2024 for the next transportation master plan update. So it's coming up. But having that plan in place, getting staff on board with what it is you're wanting to achieve. I think what I don't often see is even getting other boards on board of plans, but then, all of you kind of lobbying the heck out of what it is that you're wanting to accomplish that TAB is trying to get through. So those are the things, at least, that I see from other groups who are coming in and working on influencing our decisions. So I just wanted to offer that as
Thank you.
knowledge, I guess.
Hi, Valerie. Can't hear you, Val. Are you? You're connecting your audio now. There we go. Are you there? Can't hear you still. Do others hear her? Is it just me? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Not sure what to do, but if you figure it out, we would love to hear from you. So just interrupt whatever's going on if you figure it out. I'm hearing the importance of sort of telling the story is something that's gotten generated, Ryan, by this particular comment. So kind of setting the stage with that whole thing, and then maybe some of the specific other pieces fit under it.
Heidi, I heard that too. I also heard Nicole say, in my mind, the way it reached me was, you have your annual letter, but that's not it.
That's not all you have.
We can commission one another or the board entirely to interface with the board. So and I knew that, and it's a good reminder. So so in any case, I think that's a good reminder.
Yeah, thank you.
And then
Okay.
if we're done on climate, I could go to those other, I could do just a quick tally on those that other category, but
Is that all right with everyone?
you,
I just
Heidi.
want to do a check-in real quickly. And make sure, I think that'd probably be the best thing, since you got 3 dissertations to go. No, but explaining them would be really helpful.
Can you
Yeah.
Can you stretch them so they're not cut off? I don't know. I tried it. Can't do it. Anyway, I can try to read them if you can.
I don't have them cut off, so I can on my screen, but I think that Nathan can on his, and that
Fine.
might help
Okay.
you.
I didn't know about the word count limit. And I was writing fast. So this is a category of things that are about.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second, Ryan. If you all look on Nathan's screen, I think they're blown up now, and you won't see it cut off. Do you know what I mean by that? Go back to the Zoom meeting instead of your, yeah, so sorry. Go ahead. I just wanted to let you know it was there.
Okay, so this is a little bit not traditional as far as the TMP topics, but in my, experience with Tab, there's a few things that we could do, the city could do, the department could do with the city to, I think, unleash itself. Just consider that we have, well, okay, this is my view. We have pretty incredible expertise and energy in the staff, on staff. We have a majority council that's excited in general. That's my take on a lot of the things we're trying to do. And yet it's like, okay, let's do it. And so but it still takes years to roll out CAN, and we have to say no to things and that are otherwise I think people would like to do. So there are limits. And so what are the limiting factors? And I would suggest we have an opportunity to enhance teamwork, essentially effective teamwork across the city as an enterprise to do more. And one of the topics in climate science on IPCC is and this isn't specific to climate, it's about system change, but it's that when you're in a system of lock-in in which people have their roles and accountability systems, it's hard for them to internally change things and to change roles. And we have here as TAB an opportunity to be an exogenous, an outside force to say, well, it's not like politically difficult for us to point out that there's organizational alignment or opportunities to kind of create cross-departmental enhancements in ways that staff, if you're within the formal career structure, it's just harder to do that. So I just would like to point out that, and it's easy for me to say, but I would like to point out that in my experience, I think there's a few things here that I think we could get a lot, if we could resolve these, we'd get a lot more done on the things that TAB cares about. And I don't know that these are work plan items. I think these are maybe just, feedback for the team to consider. And then I'd love to discuss them if there's interest, but I know it can get this is a little wonky. But basically the three ones are, oops, where to go here? Okay, so the first is this growth mindset one. And I think of this e-bike proposal exercise we went through, in which we basically all, well, more or less, there was a consensus that this be great to do to get funding for e-bikes. Funding exists. The city has money for e-bikes. It supports multiple TMP goals if we were able to give funding to e-bikes. But the city just doesn't have literally the time and the staff to manage it. And I am very sympathetic to that being true in the moment. But it's, I think I've detected now a pretty strong pattern over my time on TAB of this sort of feedback coming back to TAB on an idea to say, love to do it, but it's a trade-off of resources. And what I would love to see that turn into is instead of coming back to TAB and saying you need to stop things, rather to turn it council and the public to say, we're not able to do the things we want because we do not have the resources we need. And if you would give us what's required, we could get this done, XYZ done, like in a big picture way, not just sort of one-off, but more strategically. And I think if we could expect that as a response, more so than let's talk about trade-offs, it would be good for morale, and it would be good for a lot of the things that we care about. So that's one. I think strategic focus in proposals is, I talked about this before, but when we see a request for feedback, whether it's a capital project or whatever, we should see as part of that presentation automatically a discussion on this supports our mode shifting goals, because as you know, we all understand that the 4 or 5 or whatever kind of key things we have to do to drive mode shifting is this, and it supports it this way. I think if we could have a more a sort of objective understanding of what we think the change, what will drive change in our various TMP goals, even as just the draft kind of a working process that would create a lot more objectivity in the way that we evaluate proposals. And it would give us and the public and all stakeholders interested a chance to continually refine, interrogate and give staff a chance to refine those as we go. That'll take time to do, but I think that would be a really incredible thing for the city if we could expect that automatically in each proposal. And then the final one is, it comes up from me thinking about climate, but it's more general, and it's this getting after this problem. Well, this issue that we have multiple departments in the city that have a critical impact on the ability to get multimodal and decarbonizing work done, particular through land use. And there's not an accountability to a high level transportation with maybe it's a lowercase t, but a city level, a city leadership level set of transportation goals. Rather, it's we have transportation department here and land use is there. And if we could get I think a new climate initiative at the city cabinet level, or I'm not sure what you'd call it, this might do it, in which we say, look, we have to get deep decarbonization done through a really strong alignment with the planning and land use and community vitality. If we had that, I think we would be having entirely different kinds of conversations about parking. It would be less awkward. We would have staff all around and leaders all around who would have accountability for decarbonization in their spheres, but they don't have it, and so it's hard to see things changing much. So those are my three. I think hopefully Valerie, Natalie, and team, at least you have this. I'd love to chat offline if I can be helpful. I don't mean to be don't mean this to be too critical, but I think those procedural improvements would unleash staff, and it would unleash TAB to be able to do more.
More to help. Valerie, looks like Valerie wants to respond. Let's see if we can hear you. Hi. Can't hear you, Valerie. I hear static, but I don't hear your voice. I don't know, it's probably too long for you to put in chat. And I don't know if you saw also Nicole's question to staff in chat. You might be the only person who can answer that that's on though.
How about now?
There she is.
All right. Thanks.
Woohoo.
I didn't see the comment in the chat, but I just wanted to say thanks for your patience. I'm in the car coming back from vacation with family. So I just wanted to speak to some of the earlier comments around some of Ryan's sticky notes. And, of course, the Transportation Master Plan update, I think everyone is on the same page. It's a great venue for having these higher level policy conversations. One thing I would just suggest or mention for consideration is that we do an annual report on progress, which is what we do in the off years when we're not updating our Transportation Master Plan. And that report on progress might be a great way to start shifting that framework around how we talk about our work and how we report on the climate goals that we're all speaking to today. So I just wanted to offer that and also just mention that with our work on the CAN, we have repurposed the funding and staff resources for the Transportation Master Plan update that would have started this year. We've repurposed those resources towards the CAN, and we don't yet currently have a year that we have solidified as when we will next update our plan. We don't have necessarily any rules about how often we update that. So that's something that can, be for future conversation. And I just wanted to clarify that point. And if you could read out the question in the chat, I'd be happy to answer that as well at this time.
Yeah, let me open it up. Nicole is asking, does any tab or does tab or any board or commission ever give feedback to council? And she needs to leave, but she's really interested. Do they ever give feedback on council's budget discussions? Because those are starting soon. And she would personally appreciate hearing from tab folks, especially on the budget. Do they ever give feedback as far as you know, Valerie?
And that the second part that I just clarified, just to clarify that too, Valerie, I don't mean like tab going in with a red pen and apart transportation budget, but rather, right, one of the things that we on council have to look at is what are the different departmental priorities? Are things, is our funding allocated in the right way to the goals that we say we have in the city? And so, you know, for new initiatives and things like e-bikes, where would we pull from? What areas should have higher priority across the city, right? That it would be wonderful to have some feedback like that, because those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about as we head into budget discussions. And are there places where we can align, right? Is there some alignment between like Parks and Rec and transportation around e-bikes? I mean, what are those kind of different ways of thinking about things? But yeah, I do have to run, and I apologize. I would love to stay with you all, but thank you so much for all that you're doing. And
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. I see Alex had his hand up, and also Trini. Alex, did you want to say something specifically to council member Spear? Okay. Trini?
Yeah, well, I guess, but Nicole already left. I guess I have a lot of suggestions because I constantly learn about funding and grants. And so what would be the protocol like to address city council, or, I mean, I just don't know those, like,
Is there anybody on that knows that or knows where we can find out, Alex?
About, I think 60% of the department's budget is the capital improvement program, which is the 5-year budget for capital projects. And that's something that's updated on an annual basis, and TAB provides we did it, recommended it to planning board and council last month. So we have some opportunity to see in pretty good detail where 60% of the money's going as far as capital projects go. And that would be an opportunity to weigh in. With regard to some of the other stuff, I don't think we have much purview over what's going on the planning side of things or the programmatic. I think those would probably require some pretty clear direction from council to implement something like an e-bike program. And then at that point, staff would have the opportunity to find the staffing resources and the budgetary resources to make a program or planning effort like that possible.
But like, very specifically, I'm sorry, you guys are calling my dogs. But like, for example, if I were to know of a specific grant that could help somehow fund this idea that Ryan had, what would be the process? I mean, I don't like, what is the protocol? Do I reach out to Nicole, for example, because she's the one that's like asking me so much information, and just email her, and or how does that work? Like when there's like additional funding that the city can really benefit from that I know of.
Personally, I'd reach out to a staff member who it felt like it was most applicable for. And if I didn't have a specific staff member in mind, I'd probably just use the TAB email address where a lot of the upper level staffers would receive it. And then if there's some appetite there, then reaching out to Nicole and others on council, maybe a subsequent or concurrent step that could be made.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that, and Valerie, I think you're still on. Do you have anything to add to that, or is that? Maybe not.
I've done this multiple times recently and had a great response.
Ryan.
Thanks for sending me the grant idea. And so yeah, Valerie seems like a good potential person for that.
Okay. Valerie? You got muted again, but you were live. Did you have anything that you could add, Valerie?
Yeah, thanks for that. So I think I caught half of Alex's comment. Sorry about that. I think that the question is, the distinction between. So sorry, I'm gonna go back on mute.
And this is trying to come in the middle of a vacation, coming back from the vacation. It sounds like she might have something to add in terms of the right steps or whatever, but Alex, what I was hearing you say is check in with staff first, and if there's interest, then approaching council, maybe as an interim step rather than just approaching council, a council member. Did I hear that right?
That's personally probably the route I would take, to just make sure that you're not getting council on board with something that's not going to be compatible with staff's abilities or plans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess what's really exciting right now is that there's so much additional funding because of all these different things that are happening in Washington, that it's just a shame that, that I can't, like, who do I tell?
Can I add, Trini? So yes, and this was my growth mindset point, or reminds me of it, because with the e-bikes exercise last month or a couple months ago, we have money just sitting with the city, and the limiting factor seems not so much that we can't find available grant money, but that we don't have the ability to, we don't have the capacity to use it. And I know some of that's just structural staffing, trying to recruit staff. But anyway, I agree with your I love where you're going with this.
Yeah, great. So I'm looking at the time, and I want to have you all focus on the whole board again, see if there's any other groupings that could come together, or how we might. I think some of these are specific to our priority and focus on a specific project or thing happening, and some of it is so for example, Ryan, when I hear growth mindset, what I'm hearing is ways of growing the pie rather than figuring out how to divide the pie. So it's a yes and we get more. So they're not all exactly parallel priorities and ideas, but do you see any other places where they can be lumped together, or we can call out redundancy, is my first question. And my second question, oh, sorry, Trini, yes.
I mean, maybe prioritizing walkable, livable 30th Street with mine, very obvious safety over speed reduction. I mean, just kind of.
It's the same thing, but a little more specific.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I see there's 2 items on here about parking and then planning and land use. And I think those all come together to have future development that's safe, equitable, sustainable. There needs to be more coordination between and parking's a piece of that problem.
Also, Heidi, I'm just thinking about who would act on these, and some of them are within the kind of regular bounds that we work through staff on, like right. keeping CAN in focus, and just so there's that. Some of, at least one or a couple of these are for council, I think, are called out, and so maybe you could sort of have a tray for council. And then maybe there's something that's kind of in the middle, which is maybe not defined yet, or it may involve multiple departments, and therefore, probably city manager or something. I don't know. So some further consideration beyond like just the department can do this. I don't want to overcomplicate it, but it does strike me that might be one way to at least
to organize it. Yeah. Yeah, it might be. And I want to tell you all are able to move the stickies. If you put your cursor, I think, on the arrow, you can move them and group them around if anyone wants to take that on. But let me go to Alex first, because you had a comment that I missed, I think, Alex. Or
I was going to say, I'm not really clear what we're doing here. There are things on here I support, like making crash data publicly accessible, but I don't think that's really something we can accomplish as a group. Okay. And it's like staff might be in the we heard a little bit about that last night. And then there are things we could advocate for at council. And then there are things that I think we as a group have the power to help influence. I think last night was a good example when we were all throwing out ideas and reacting to other ideas in our tip conversation. If there were themes that we had in here and projects that aligned well with those themes, that would be a good opportunity for us in the coming year, whether it's this next tip or some other grant opportunity that comes across Trini's desk, that we could make that a reality if we have some overlap.
I love that. And so just to go back to the purpose of this, for you to hear from each other some of what you're thinking and where your interests and priorities and what you'd like to see happening. But it wasn't necessarily just focused on what we could act on or what we could encourage others to act on. It was just that. But at this stage, what's the most useful way to start to identify these and use your dots to say, here's something that like we could influence, here's something that we could advocate to council about, here's something that, and I'm not sure, I need to ask you, what would be the most useful for you in terms of how you organize this and identify any, where the momentum is.
And I guess for me, it would be helpful to know if there are specific items that are very council specific. I mean, there are a couple I had that I noted are for council because I think there's not really going to be a way to change them without council putting them on a future agenda and making, it a priority to act on it. So I support that as like, are there council specific things, in which case, to the extent that it's possible within our meeting times and rules, that tab can work collectively on addressing, is there, group support for those items? If not, that's okay, but that's kind of why we're here to discuss. And then, yeah, other things that are more specific to tab's feedback to the department. And are those things we want to discuss further, not necessarily today, just another time.
So I was going to recommend that we take a little 5-minute brain break because it's been, you had a long night last night and it's been an hour. We're going on the 2-hour mark, not quite yet. It looks like Nathan's kind of setting some stuff up, like there's a box for council items, and then what can the other box be? Because I'm wondering if we can take a little break and people can start to move items into those. If you know what's council specific and what's requires more conversation.
Yeah, what about one? I mean, one is just sort of straightforward. We know how to work this kind of within the bounds of our regular, internal dialogue. And then maybe there's a middle one that's, I don't know, TBD, might be cross-departmental, or we, take something more.
So when you say that, it's one that's just tab specific. I mean, what would I call that? The one that you said is straightforward. We know how to work this.
It's more like department specific, because all this is
department specific, right. And one that's the bigger, more complicated, multi.
Yeah, maybe just messy or I don't know what you call it. But
it's not just cross department as I'm listening to you though, Ryan. It's a systemic picture rather than a specific focus or project picture that you're talking. And
yes. Okay.
Yeah, right. And I'm not sure how to label it, but that's sort of what it's coming to.
Maybe one is like kind of typical things that fall under TMP.
Okay.
That's, yeah, and then like sort of other.
How about the other one is just called It's Complicated, and then we can sort of unpack that later. But the one that's a little more cross-departmental, sort of the bigger picture, strategy and storytelling. And then my ask of you all, if we just kind of take 5 minutes to stretch and 5 more minutes for, you can see that Nathan is setting these boxes up, and if you can move the stickies the way you think they fit, everybody has the ability to move them, I believe. That'd be helpful, because you would know that better. I mean, I wouldn't know what to do with them. I'm not sure if Nathan might know a little what to do with them. Okay, excellent, thank you. And so I'm going to pick the conversation back up at 4:25, if that's okay with everyone. And I do want you to just take a moment to clear your brain so you can sort of revisit this. And I know you're used to long meetings without breaks, but we shouldn't be used to that. It'd be good to clear our heads for a minute.
And I'm just making suggestions. Please feel free to change anything.
Have you been the only one driving, Nathan?
Nope,
Is that
I
you?
see people are going
Okay,
ahead and
good.
moving stuff already, which
Excellent.
is wonderful.
Yep, excellent, thanks. couple more minutes and then we'll get started again. Do we have everybody back? Trini is the only one I think I don't see. And Alex, oh, there you are. Hi. So we've got this in somewhat an organized order, and I know there's going to be some next steps, but I'm wondering if it makes sense to you all. I'd like you all to use those dots that you see above your name and drag them to where you want to use them. So you have 4, and you can put them, like I said, all on one or in various places. I think we still have opportunity to wordsmith and collapse some of these into each other. So it won't matter too much if you put it on one of the 3 can or one of the 4 can things. That would be fine. But go ahead and just see how this works. You click on it and drag it and put it wherever, so we can see where the energy is of where you have this sort of alignment and agreement.
Sorry, Heidi, my brain was occupied. You're saying put the dots
no problem.
on the ones we like the most?
Yeah, so I'm not really able to categorize it too much more than that, Ryan, because it's not really about where you want to necessarily put your efforts yet and impact, but which ones do you think you have the most interest in digging into in a deeper way. I'll say it that way. Alex, how did you choose? Maybe we can start there. How did you decide where you were putting your dots? Based on what?
I think CAN is one of the biggest opportunities we've had in a while, so I'd like to keep moving that forward. I like
so it's where you can have impact.
I like thinking about how we can make the types of improvements that are happening in CAN a more sustainable thing, perhaps through policy. That's something that people have floated forever, but council has not had, I think, a really good template to act upon. I put a dot on promoting good governance. At the first half of the retreat, we were told ideally how city and staff and tab all work together.
Right.
And through the years, that is not at all how things have operated in reality. So increasing the public's trust in the department by hoping to hold staff more accountable. And I put my fourth dot on Ryan's name. He's a man on a mission with objectives I think support all of our causes. So I don't want to parse that all of the blue, but
I love that.
just supportive of the thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very good. Thank you.
Alex, I don't know if your last dot made it on there, or at least it's not on my screen.
It's on Ryan's name, right? Oh,
Oh, that was intentional. I understand now.
it is intentional. Yeah. The way that it's Ryan's brain, the way that he thinks, as I understand it, he's very supportive of the thinking and the what ifing and possibility.
Can I ask Alex a process question?
Mhm.
When is our next letter to council, and when do we, like, is this, I don't know. I don't want to cook anybody's brain, but when you start thinking about, to what extent do we need to be thinking about that, like, pretty earnestly?
I think it's in November. Is that right, Alex? Sometime in November, typically?
Yeah, or beginning of the year. It depends on how big of an ask we have or what, because we're trying to pay an update. If we're hoping to shift gears dramatically, I think we need to be thinking through that as a board soon and planting those seeds with council members and city staff sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I'm wondering, I'm sort of backing into this question of where to go the dots, but maybe my mind's wandering too much, but I'm thinking, like, we've talked about things we care about. I don't know that we've talked too much about, like, what did we learn from the process of getting a kick-ass council work plan item on the agenda this year?
The CAN thing.
Yeah. And like, what are there lessons with respect to how we want to do the next one, reflecting on that, and then also expanding the pie, like to be able to interact with an interested council beyond just the letter. So I know that was like sort of a theme today, but now that I'm putting dots places, I'm just thinking, like, okay, I guess we do, at some point need to start kind of focusing in on, okay, what's the letter? So I don't know.
I think, yeah, go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
For us to be effective, we have to figure out how to pull the levers of a complex bureaucracy, and a suggested work plan item is one way to do that. A letter to council is one way to do that. In our monthly meetings, we can do that. I don't think there's like one right answer, and I wouldn't put too much stock in the lone letter to council because they get 25 of those from boards and commissions, and most I don't think have much sway.
Yeah. I wonder then about one more thing, and I'll try to stop talking. On like, are there things that people are willing to spend time on or champion, and which is a little different than saying, here's what I'm proposing that we all work together on. Like, do people have kind of hobby projects? And maybe you find in there things could happen with those. It could be exciting. But maybe we don't. Maybe I'm the only one with a hobby. I don't know.
Well, that's one of the things that often is beneficial after something like this, and you're asking incredibly good questions. I'm a really big fan of looking at what worked and how we bring that forward and do things, like, so you had this great presentation of CAN, right, to council that was huge and big and successful. So I love the idea of taking some time to talk about what worked and so that you bring that forward with the work that you do. But the other thing is there's a difference between where's the interest and energy of the group. And we're starting to see clearly it's something to do with CAN, right? And then having, there's something there where I see a whole lot of dots. And then having, that doesn't mean because you put your dot there that you're saying you're the one who wants to be the champion or the one that makes sure we organize and get that going, right? That's a different question that you're asking now. Is there one that someone would like to take on? Is there one that anyone would kind of like to take on as whatever the next steps might be around it? And another good question, what are you seeing right now? So I'm holding those, Ryan, is why I'm repeating them. I've got those questions and I think they're important. What I want to ask first is, what do you see as people are putting their dots in place? And thank you for doing that, Nathan. I think it's to help us remember whose dots are what color, right? I imagine that's what you're up to. What do you see?
I just wanted to clarify one thing, just to make sure we're on the same page, which is the parking mandate reform item I put on the council items list, which is not, I'm not referring to pricing of parking or on-street parking, or any of that, like that we learned about, that was on up for discussion yesterday. It's referring to parking minimums that are required in development.
Okay.
So that's, and I think it's something that would be potentially something other boards could go along with. So I just wanted to clarify that item.
Becky, thanks. And I want to cut my dot half. I want to cut my dot in equal parts for all the ones that say parking. But yeah, I'm not sure how to treat that.
That's a tricky one, because I wonder if there's similar and not completely the same, but everything connected to parking, it feels like that could become one, doesn't it? Or it can't, because it's in the different buckets that we created now, I suppose.
Yeah, it's tricky because, okay, no, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's just a technical question. Did we all get 4 dots or 3 dots?
Huh?
I think 4.
Y'all got 4 dots.
Missing my 4th dot. I'm trying
I
desperately.
know one, you have one really stretched to out one under.
I know,
promotion
if I was trying to duplicate it, but oh, thank
There you
you.
go.
Okay, you see all 4 of them now? Yeah.
Mhm. Great, thanks. So I'm gonna put
There
this
we
one
go.
over here. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I get a little heartburn with the, like, just trying to put a dot on one, because it's, you know,
Yeah.
parking is, it's a council, it's a critical topic for council. But then if you get climate, if you really get council to say, we're serious about a commitment to science-based climate action, then you'd have the transportation department telling council, hey, by the way, we got to get parking right. And maybe that would expand their thinking on it too. And then on parking, on cross-departmental, we've got communication with community vitality on parking, but then there's a more general point that we need to have alignment among our departments on the critical topics. So
Yeah.
I don't want to state a bunch of obvious facts here, but I'm just trying to think, like, how do we kind of consolidate the
Yeah.
action?
I mean, I'm seeing like some sticky notes consolidated together. All the can stuff I think can go together. But otherwise, I'm like, well, they're kind of different ideas. And then to put them like to separate some things that are touching on a similar idea, like parking, to cross-departmental and council items, like it's now separating them. So this looks like a hot mess to me, is what I'm seeing.
So one of the things that and that, you know, to me, it looks, it isn't completely streamlined, but it doesn't look like a hot mess. I think I see some of the places where you have some similar interests, but the next step of this is to try to make it a little more organized and to call out some redundancy into wordsmith so that we can make a bucket out of these 4. For example, don't remember if I don't remember how to do this so that you can see what I mean, that somehow this could become a thing instead of 4 separate things. But that isn't a really good use of all of your brains together. If there's somebody who would be willing to take that and do that, and for the group, that would be awesome. I think that'd be an awesome next step. So you've captured this, you've had a chance to kind of hear from each other what your interests are and get some questions and some ideas floating. I thought there were some really, and I know some that you've heard before, some that got clarified a little, but a next step in terms of hanging on to this and building what we talked about is a more unified voice. And please feel free to speak up, Alex, because I think I got that a little from understanding you thinking about what are our priorities together gives us a little more power to make something happen, right?
Can I make just a suggestion for maybe quick debate?
Always.
I feel like I I don't know where this goes exactly, but if we could just put this into a document and say, that says, we met, have met, talked about these things. One thing, the first thing we all agreed on was, we've really got to stay focused on CAN and explain that, and then say, here are some other items we discussed, and, have some relationship, take a little bit of kind of playing with that, but then we'd have that for the, for the record. And, I remember, at least when I was envisioning this months ago, it was the idea of getting to something like that, something like it's just a shared, nothing too formal, but just like a sense of what is the expertise of this group think is important. And then maybe that's not the letter council per se, but it's just kind of a record of this. I think that would do more than just having the sticky notes. And I'm also guessing that in the moment, it might be kind of hard for folks to like really figure out what all the action items are.
Right. I think that's great, but I also believe that you could use this just to look back on it and start to pull some things and build for the council letter. Right. And so I think it's useful the way it is. I think it could be more useful if someone took it and kind of played with it a little and made it a little more organized.
Yeah, it's an outline for some prose that you could, yeah.
But it's good. I mean, it's good data. It's just there's not an end result. And that one of the things that, and I might have been third party, Alex, because I know I reached out at a bad time for you, but I'm looking at you because of a conversation we had a while ago now, about kind of what we could do. But one of the things I've heard from you all is just knowing more about the wisdom in the room and the passion in the room and these things about each other. So for example, I thought hearing Trini, that you hear these opportunities for grant, getting money, and what do you do with them? Because they could really be something, like just bringing those kinds of things to the table and knowing that can be very valuable down the road when you all hear something or something comes up. But I'd love for you all to understand where the energy in the room is in a way that might make you feel like this stuff that you care about, like keeping CAN front of mind and moving forward and keep maintaining momentum, right, through, because it takes a while to do. It makes you more powerful together, right, I think as a group. Yeah, but you tell me, is there something that would be really useful that you see as beneficial or useful from this as a next step from this?
I mean, I think just knowing if there are things people are planning on working on, like want to regardless, just knowing that they're working on that, so that if it's something that another person wants to support, whether it's someone else on this board or somebody on staff who's interested, or somebody outside that gets involved, knowing that they can be a person to go to support that effort. I mean, it would be helpful. I'm not saying like a public document of obligations or anything like that, but I mean just like for me to know that someone's working on this particular, like if I'm like, for instance, I'm the crash data public access, I had been thinking about this for a while, learned last night it's actually much further along than I anticipated, which is great, but I want to follow up on it. I'm going to follow up on it. If anybody has questions, they can ask me. I'm going to follow up with Veronica. That's just an easy example, but that's what just, somebody can know that that's sort of a priority for me, and I will follow up on it. And if they have questions, happy to help.
That's excellent. Thank you.
I love that. I didn't know, and yes, I didn't know we had an expert and an enthusiast, on that topic, and would love to. Yes, so I think that's a really good example of this group having some kind of focus area issues that maybe aren't the tab general focus, but together actually could create some, really good chemistry.
And please report back at the end of our board meetings under matters from the board. That's a helpful time to hear about anyone's efforts outside of the business that's immediately before us.
So at the end, sort of like an update on, here's just FYI what I've been up to, or what what I'm doing in this. And that way, you know, if there's a common interest. What I hesitate about and why I'm not chiming in as a whole lot here is that I know there are rules and regulations and I don't know them all. You know what I mean? But in the board meetings, you can have those conversations, right? Yeah. And as community members, you can too. I'm just saying, the hat as advisory board, but this is all the place where I don't have expertise and know all the things. So.
Well, this is something, that limitation of our ability to get together on and work on things like a team often would, is one reason why this is powerful, that we have experts that can go kind of lead a charge, come back to tab and report out in the public forum, allow public feedback. And anyway, I think it's an opportunity that results from that limitation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I understand your role as an advisory board. I feel like I hear, and I've learned more from Councilmember Spear and stuff, that not only in terms of advising council, but really hungry for your engagement and input. So that's an avenue. I don't know that it always has to be her, but it feels like that's an incredibly powerful avenue, maybe for the two things that are specifically council items, but maybe for some other stuff as well. So you wrote something that I thought was good in the comments also, Ryan, about budget and org design is transportation policy, right? I met with a group at the state of California yesterday, I think it was. They have housing as a climate strategy now. That's like a whole effort and committee that they've just started up. So there's lots of ways of thinking differently, opening the aperture and thinking differently that I really hear in this group. And I don't know, that might be part of why Alex put his dot on your name, Ryan, was that some of that thinking that you bring.
Well, welcome to the caucus on compact development for and inclusive housing for climate action as the first stop. Glad to have you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great Vision Zero strategy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me just take a minute. We've got this wonderful document. I feel like something wants to happen with it. That's a next step. I'm not sure what would be most useful for you all, or if anything would be. But there's amazing and great data just in here in terms of what you know about each other and where you have similarity, but also where you have expertise and wonderful diversity. But I just like to check in with each of you, something that you're walking away from this session with, and any next step. So it's kind of, here's what I'm walking away with that you found valuable. And also if there's a next step that you would find valuable in this conversation that could happen, as Alex said, updating each other and keeping it alive at the end of board meetings or any, I don't know, another opportunity to come together for a shorter period.
I missed
yeah,
out on
Trini.
chiming in, but I would love to take on the messaging aspect of that, those 4 little notes. I think that's something that
great
I can do successfully, and I think
the
it's
ones that were all together. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good next step. So you can take on that part of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So that's a specific next step and something that sounds like it's interesting and valuable to you as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Who else? How about Becky? I'm going to pick on you.
So this is just for follow up on any of these.
Yeah. So like anything that what was valuable in this for you today? And then any specific follow up that you think would be, you're either interested in doing or you'd like TAB in general to do.
Yeah, I think this is helpful for me just to spend the time thinking about my own interests and priorities, and because it's hard to know enough to be engaged on every single time. I mean, the transportation department covers so many facets of work that it's hard for me to be knowledgeable enough to really contribute to all of them. So even just thinking through, okay, or what are areas I feel like I can contribute more to and care about, and maybe that's where I focus energy instead of trying to understand lots of things that maybe is going to be a challenge for me. So so that was a helpful process for me to go through, and of course to see that for everybody else. Yeah, I mentioned that the cross data piece is something I'm very interested in, just in terms of public access. I'm interested in parking manager reform. There's some other folks in the city I'd like to talk to who are interested in this, and it's something I'd like to pursue. It's not an easy policy lift, but as far as land use and climate change is a good one. And transportation. Yeah, and then I would love to spend more time thinking about, a couple years down the road, how do you embed work like CAN into policy so that there are the resources and funding sort of there on a more continuous basis to really tackle these, the most problematic roads in our transportation system.
Great.
Yeah, so doing initially some research on that.
Yeah. And I also remember we have the list of what's really going well in TAB and what could be more helpful. And one of the things you also said in terms of your contributions is clarity about what is our role in this. Do you want advice on this? Do we weigh in? Are you just updating us? And clarity about that along the way in the board meetings would be really helpful for you to know where to put your attention and effort. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, Tila.
I really enjoyed having Councilmember Spear here again. It's pretty, I think it helps assuage some of the frustration that we don't really know how to communicate with council, that we have someone who's so actively trying, to hear us and interject with us. And I just got back from vacation myself, and still kind of, there's a lot going on right now, but it reminded me that before I left, she had asked, to get together one-on-one. And I'm like, oh yeah, I have to do that and follow up with her and try to, sort of figure out a better way for TAB to interface with council, or at least, open up those channels of communication. I think Alex is quite good at that, and I'm not, and I need to work on that. And then the second big sort of aha moment was, as I said to Ryan, was like, oh, well, now you've really expressed the problem in such a succinct way. Like we say we're doing stuff, but we're really not. You're not, you're paying lip service to stuff. So I like, while we were on this, I went back to our the memo from Community Vitality last night about parking pricing and all that. And I searched for the word climate. Like, I remember them saying something about it, and that's literally what they said. Like, of course, all these other programs inform it. It's the climate commitment. And then the same phrase, this advances our climate and sustainability goals. Those verbatim were the other uses of the word climate, without explaining how, without explaining why. And it appears without a deep understanding of why and whether. And it strikes me as like akin to giving up plastic straws, but not, avoiding takeout food and all the wasteful crap that goes along with, the stuff that we do every day that we don't think twice about. We're picking the smallest things and saying, well, giving up plastic straws is better than nothing, and charging 25 cents more an hour for cars is better than nothing. Like, well, but it's not enough. And so to be able to actually say, as Ryan did, like, in our messaging, in our conversations with staff, in our TMP update, no, actually, we got to change the whole freaking system. It's not just an inconvenience that we can't talk about land use. It is essential that we be allowed to talk about land use. Has really, I don't know, galvanized my support behind really trying to push the climate impacts of our transportation and policy making, and what staff is doing, what they're being told to do by council, by their TMP, by the city manager. So thanks for that, Ryan.
Great, thank you. And Brian.
I've already said a lot today. I suppose I would just I forgot what the question was. It was sort of where do we go from here? Where do I go from here? I think one reflection is that, well, this reflection first. It's we now have a I think just a quite different relationship Tab does both with council and with staff now than we did 6 months ago. And there's a more, there's just, I think we're on a trend of increasingly positive and enriching discussions with both and doing our work. I think we're doing the work now that I had imagined we should be doing, a year ago, much more so. And I think part of it is it's like, it's not about this like one annual letter. It's more about just having a genuine relationships and offering advice, and that's what we're here for, only advice. Although with council, we advise council, which can do more than advise. So I guess I'm just expressing optimism in this sort of way that we continue to go, and I've enjoyed very much having Nicole here, but also just, meeting with individual council members. And I'd encourage others here to just, we have multiple council members that are interested in these topics. And I think a well-functioning tab looks like individual tab members relating to council members to the extent, that there's mutual interest in that, and coming back, and, we can sort of help shape things. So I'm grateful for sort of where that is going. And then I suppose just more on the specifics for me. I'd like to continue to kind of nose the climate stuff forward, and I'm glad to hear there's sounds like more and more interest in that being a kind of a group topic. Either way, I'm committed to following up with Natalie and Jonathan, and then seeing where that goes. But more generally, to advocate that we at least have some good transparency about to the extent which the city is doing science-based transportation climate action, and then following the implications from there. So yeah, more to come on that. And then the other thing is, my little comment on the chat here, I said transportation policy is org design and budget. I think most people probably already agreed about budget. Org design might be controversial. That might be kind of a nerdy thing to say, but I truly believe it. And I think especially with local government, this is policy. It's roles and consequences and accountability and incentives. And this is where we're going to make things happen. So I know it's kind of messy and not like a conventional topic that we would normally weigh in on, and I want to be careful not to get too far outside of what is our job or my job. But I do think that on these big questions of alignment with land use and parking, we don't get that done without delving into both of these. So those are kind of my two things that I'll probably continue to be doing some moonlighting on.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Alex.
I've got a hard stop at 5, so I'll try to be quick.
Okay.
I think materials have been front of mind for me for the last three years, and so I'll keep the pressure on CAN and try to identify as many opportunities as possible there. And then it's been great hearing everyone's ideas. Be happy to grab coffee and think about how we take some of these objectives and make them more actionable within the context of a not very agile bureaucracy. So especially Brian with sort of the messaging and what some of those outcomes might look like.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, so you have this document. We'll make sure you all get a copy of the Jamboard, and then maybe in spare time, some of you will think about ways of taking it, doing something with it. I understand Trini's going to help kind of work on the 4 that come together, but there might be something else that you see. And one is like sort of the umbrella message and storytelling and how things fit within it that we had talked about. Because I hear a lot of here's where my interest is and what I'm going to do. And I think that's completely amazing and wonderful, especially as a community member. I think it's amazing and wonderful. And together, advising council and those connections that you have, this sort of unified voice is more powerful than the individual. So thank you all so much. I'm glad that this felt like valuable use of time, and we'll get notes to you and let you take it from there. And if you want to have any kind of other retreat, we'll let staff know. Okay. All right.
Thanks, Heidi. Well done.
Be well. Good to see you all.